So it is a problem oftentimes to have both parents there when they don't get along well. I had one client who this happened in the dentist's office, and the child was young, maybe 8, 9 years old, was scared to death of dentists. And a lot of kids are. They have a lot of anxiety and fear, phobia. I don't like the dentist when they have to do work, real work, right?
Right.
And here's the child already anxious. And the dentist or the hygienist said only one parent can come back. And they both started to come back. And then she said, no, only one parent. And they looked at each other. And then it was like this fight started. And, mom's like, I'm staying here. They want me here. And then they asked the child, which one of us do you want?
No.
And the child started crying. And the dentist said, you know what? I'm going to stop the appointment. I'm not going to work on a child who's crying.
Yeah.
And made them leave. And I thought, what a nightmare for the kid.
Exactly.
I don't think doctors understand how they get used.
Yes.
As they get weaponized.
Weaponized. Yes.
Hey, this is Diane Rick.
And I'm Rick Voiles.
We've been working with co-parents in conflict for more than 2 decades. We've taught classes, written books, counseled parents, empathized, and agonized a few times to help people make sense of their complicated families.
We were talking one day, and it occurred to us that helping the most difficult cases comes down to one simple concept. Is one parent willing to let go of the tug-of-war rope, or is it worth it to hold on and fight?
So we invite you to take this journey with us each episode as we tackle the questions, should you hold on or let it go?
Welcome to Co-Parent Dilemmas, where we give you practical solutions to those impossible co-parents. Hello, Diane.
Hello. How are you, Rick?
I am very good. I'm very busy and forgetting what day it is. But yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Why are you forgetting what day it is?
Somebody asked me yesterday, I was on a Zoom call, and they go, so how was your weekend? And I'm going, wait, was it the weekend? Oh yeah, today's Sunday. That's what I mean.
Okay, I don't have to worry about you, dementia or anything.
No, it's just that
what
they all
is my
blur.
name?
Who are you?
What year is it, Rick?
Who's the president? Yes.
You know what's really sad about that is, they do those what do they call those mental fitness exams and all that. And, if you fail that, you're like way, way, way beyond help. And that always frustrates me. There's a friend of mine whose dad suffered with dementia or Alzheimer's told me that most definitive is the clock exam.
Yes.
Where they tell you to draw a
clock. Yep.
And draw a clock and draw at 3:00. And apparently you really have to have some executive functioning skills to be able to do that. And that's more definitive for even earlier stages of dementia.
Wow.
Than it would be who's the president. Or I'm going to say, 3 items, orange, ball, and TV. And then 5 minutes later, ask them what you said. Well, you're going to be really, really focused and concentrating. And, you're likely to pass that exam, even though you might be struggling. Anyway, that's not why we're here. We are going to talk about medical things, though.
Okay, yeah.
A few weeks ago, we did an episode on, what was it called?
The dentist.
The medical tug of war.
Yes.
I think is what we titled it. And I got some positive feedback that was really helpful because it's such a common issue. Mm-hmm. Well, this week, I got an email or fan mail from Ray, R-A-E. I don't know if Ray is he or she, doesn't matter. But they say, I am a listener and a divorced parent. Lucky to not have many dilemmas with my ex, but I appreciate your perspectives nonetheless. And I'm a pediatrician in Ontario, Canada. I am organizing a workshop to teach pediatric residents about caring for children whose parents are divorced. I wondered if you might offer some wisdom from your perspectives with such a wealth of experience in the field. I hear you discuss legal pitfalls, but have not heard much on the podcast referring to children's doctors in the roles we play. Any advice would be much appreciated, and I will be referring them to have a listen. It's important for those who care for these kids, I think he means residents, he or she means residents. It's important for these kids to have a broader perspective. Thank you so much for all you do. Well, thank you, Ray, for that message. And Rick and I got to talking about it. And I think I do have a wish list for doctors dealing with divorced parents. What do you think, Rick?
Yeah, at first when we read the email, it was like, well, God, I don't know what I would say. And then all of a sudden it started tumbling. Oh, wow. What about this? What about that? Yeah, I think there's a lot to talk about here.
I have found myself in the past when people would tell me about things, saying things like, well, maybe you could get the doctor to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Never really knowing, do doctors do that? Would they do that? Could they do that? And I'm not a physician, so I don't necessarily understand their professional ethics, although I've had to, withhold or hold up HIPAA laws. So I do
Right,
understand
right.
doctor patient confidentiality and all of those things. But when you're dealing with a child, either parent, unless one parent has sole custody of everything, which is
Mm-hmm.
rare these days, right?
Oh, yeah.
There's joint legal custody, which most of the time there is. Both parents have a right to the medical information, and most court orders state
Yes.
that each parent has the right to view medical records and that kind of thing. So I don't think anything we're talking about would violate a physician's ethics protocol guidelines, that kind of thing. Do you?
As far as we know, but if
Yeah,
we
as far as
do,
we know.
surely, Ray will let us know.
Yeah. So, Ray, we're doing this hoping that you will share this with other pediatricians, and maybe even we could have a little Zoom meeting, talk with some doctor. I would love that
Yeah.
because we often make assumptions about what doctors can do. And I've had feedback from clients too, where the doctors and nurses get very angry with them
Mm-hmm.
because of the complications that they present as divorced parents, which isn't helpful to be angry. I
Well,
understand they're difficult, right?
and practically speaking, you've got the issue of the doctor's ethics. What can they do? What can't they do? And then you've got the practicality of front office, back office dynamics of, making the appointment and who's making the appointment and what.
Right.
Yeah. So I could understand
So
where it would create tension in the office itself between staff.
so the first thing I would say is we're going to make some suggestions. Like I said, it's a wish list. I don't know if
Right.
all of the wishes could be fulfilled. In a perfect world, this is what I would like to see
Yes.
doctors be aware of and sensitive to. But then they need to turn around and educate their staff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because the person answering the phone is kind of a gatekeeper.
Right. Exactly.
The nurse practitioner might be a gatekeeper, the RN might be a gatekeeper, whoever's in the staff there. And if not everyone is well informed, then all it takes is somebody with a strong personality to just
Exactly.
shut it
Right.
all down, right?
And
We've
why
all
would the
experienced that.
and why would the person creating the appointments know or even need to know? I mean, how would I know that you were divorced and that the
Right.
other parent's going to call and cancel, right?
You
Things
know what?
like
I
that.
have a really great idea. Maybe we could get Ray to organize some doctors and we organize some parents. And we have
Oh,
a Zoom meeting where it's not just my wish list, but
yes.
the parents could express some of their frustrations with medical offices
Oh, it could be one of
and
our
how it works.
workshops that we do.
Possibly. Anyway, our ideas are free flowing here. But let's talk about, I know I have like 3 things on my wish list and you might have more than that. So I think the number one thing that comes to mind for me is that very often one parent takes the child in to see the dentist or the doctor or whomever, and that pediatrician may give advice to that one parent who's sitting in front of them,
Yes.
fully expecting them to communicate with the co-parent about everything that was said, which might work well for parents who are low to medium conflict.
Right.
But those higher conflict parents, that's asking a lot.
Yeah.
If the parent in front of you is the impossible co-parent,
Oh,
they're going to send the message to the other parent that's probably not what you said.
exactly.
It's going to be something else, something that fits their purposes and needs, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
If the person sitting in front of you is the non-impossible parent, you're asking them to tell the impossible parent something they're not willing to accept. Let me give an example. So you say, let's just say it's mom sitting in front of you, and you say to mom as the pediatrician, Johnny has, I think, an allergy to, could be peanuts, but it could be bee sting. I don't know, whatever it is, he has this allergy. So here's what we're suggesting. No more peanut butter, no more peanuts for Johnny. It doesn't seem to be deathly right now, but it is there. So we need to pay attention to it. Let's say mom's the non-impossible. She shoots an email to dad. Oh, we had our appointment today, and the doctor is suggesting that Johnny doesn't eat peanut butter. That's ridiculous.
Yes.
He's been eating peanut butter since he was 2. Next thing you know, there's this big fight because he believes that mom's making it up, or who's this doctor she chose? This was her choice of doctor, and he must be a quack. Oh, he's one of those tree huggers that, blah, blah, blah. Who knows what he's going to say? Now you have this conflict going, and mom might be able to do what you're asking her to do in her home, but she can't control what dad's doing in his home, and she's scared to death.
Exactly.
Would it be possible that once a pediatrician or dentist or somebody knows that this child's parents are divorced, that their protocol would be they would always give advice in writing to both parents at the same time?
Yes.
And if you have questions, communicate with me individually, because both parents can't always be there. And so, which leads me to the second thing on my list, is be sensitive to why both parents do come. Both parents often come because what I just described in the first wish list item.
One doesn't trust the other one, right?
Yeah. If I don't go to that appointment, even though they may have had to move mountains at work to make sure they were at that appointment, which, let's not forget how setting an appointment itself can create all kinds of turmoil in a relationship, because you're setting at a time where you know that I'm working. Right. Would it eliminate a lot of that conflict and angst if the parent who can't make the appointment knows at least the doctor is going to send me a note after the fact and let me know? Or the protocol might be either parent is allowed to call and get that information from a staff member. The doctor's notes of that. He puts in his notes advice for parents. He doesn't have to, share everything in his notes with the parent, but advice for parents if they call, so that if dad then calls the front office and says, hey, my kid was just in there for an appointment, can I have the notes? Maybe they're not comfortable emailing them. Most doctors' offices now have portals.
Yeah.
So can a note advice to parents be put in the portal? Because, even medical records can be really hard to read. They're not in your jargon, that a special note to parents could be put in the portal so that both parents could log in and read the same thing. Yeah. So that mom wouldn't have to send dad an email. She could just say, the notes should be in the portal within the next 24 hours, and you'll be able to read the notes. By the way, if I'll be happy to answer questions, but we tend to get in fights when I do. So let's just both read the portal. Something like that.
And I wonder, because I don't know, can each parent have a separate account? Because I have had conflicts where the one parent is changing the password.
Right. Another wish list item, Rick. Yes. Give each parent their own password to the same child portal.
Right.
Because I have a case like that right now where only the mom can see the child's portal, and dad thinks that she is giving him misinformation or not giving him all the information. It creates so many fights between them. Yep. So I love that. So we're talking about just a parent note, some advice that either gets communicated to them via email or through the portal, or the option of calling the office if that's the only way you're willing. But something gets decided there. Both parents having ID and password to get into the portal. Hey listeners, co-parenting during the holidays with someone who abuses alcohol can be emotionally draining and far more taxing than just the seasonal expenses. Amidst the present wrapping and the hot cocoa pouring, you might find yourself constantly worrying about your kid's safety when they're with their other parent. As a co-parenting expert, I've worked with many parents facing the same dilemma, and one tool I often recommend is SoberLink. SoberLink lets you know immediately when your co-parent is drinking. It's a high-tech breathalyzer designed to prove sobriety during parenting time. Your co-parent tests at scheduled times throughout the day. Built-in facial recognition makes sure it's them. Tamper sensors flag any cheating attempts, and the results are sent directly to your phone or email so you can be confident your kids are with a sober parent. The holidays are stressful enough, so let SoberLink alleviate some of that anxiety. Visit www.soberlink.com/dilemmas to learn more and get $50 off your device. And I don't know, you may need to check the parenting plan to make sure they do have joint legal custody so that they both do have access, which is very common. It's really rare that one parent is shut out of medical information. I mean, that's more the exception than the rule.
And be careful, because one person will tell you that they have sole custody, thinking that, but then do they have to?
Yeah, don't trust that.
No, don't trust that. But do you have to then get a copy of the parenting plan as part of your intake process?
Here's another wish list item.
Okay. All right.
So for instance, in my counseling practice, previously when I was seeing children, if someone brought their child to me for therapy, I would make them sign an agreement that checked off, did they have sole custody? Did they have joint legal custody? What kind of custody did they have? I would want a copy of the parenting plan or the custody agreement, and the name and that phone number of the other biological parent or other legal parent, I should say. Mm-hmm. And let them know, I'll see your child once, but before I see them again, I will communicate with the other parent. So they couldn't kind of pull the fast one on me. And now I have documentation. So that if it ever goes to court, you clicked on sole custody. You left that blank. You said there wasn't another parent, because that happens. People believe them, but it's not the truth. And then when it goes to court, they'll say, I never said that. I never did that. And there's no record of that. So in a pediatrician's office, they might have a special form for divorced parents that they sign, that you give me the co-parent's name and contact information. You tell me what kind of custody arrangement there is. I let you know that we will be communicating with the other parent, letting them have notes or whatever, unless you show us something that they're, So there are ways, I think, to cover you legally, but also to be helpful to the parents so that doesn't get proliferated. That we see it all the time in schools.
Yes.
And we see it in medical offices where one parent goes in and says, I've got sole custody, or they list their step parent as the other parent and pretend like the co-parent doesn't exist,
Right.
So there are ways to do that. Yes, it's a little bit more work, and no, traditionally you haven't had to do that in the past, but I don't think you have any idea how much conflict you create by not having a protocol in your office.
Exactly, which makes your life miserable, which certainly hurts the children. And that's the point for the pediatrician. What we're talking about are things that will make the child's life better. But you know what? There's I could imagine having a box that you tick in your intake process. Are you divorced? You tick it. And then another drop down fields open up that's about custody, that's about final decision making, which may be one final decision making, maybe one that most of the medical world is not familiar with, but then get some training with your back office as to what
most parenting plans, it declares one over the other parent that has final say in major medical issues, which is major issues, not one to give an aspirin, but so I think some education would really be helpful. It would help the medical office avoid a lot of drama.
Yeah.
But like you said, it helps the kids. Another thing, and I kind of referred to this in my point too, but I'm going to go back to it. Medical offices get frustrated when two parents show up. I understand that they get frustrated if the two parents show up in the waiting area and start fighting.
Yeah.
Nobody wants that in their practice. I never wanted that in my practice. But I submit to you that both parents might not want to show up if you had another protocol to share information. Because
Right.
oftentimes I know of dentist office that because it's tight quarters, when you got all the dental chair and equipment in there, and they'll say only one parent can come back. And then
Yes.
there's a big fight about which parent is going to be the one to hold the child's hand while they have the root canal or whatever,
Right.
and that's not helpful.
Mm-mm.
So it is a problem oftentimes to have both parents there when they don't get along well.
Very
And
much.
I've had several of my clients in the past say the police were actually called to the doctor's office.
Oh,
Nobody
yes.
wants that.
Nobody.
Especially the kids. I had one client who this happened in the dentist's office, and the child was young, maybe 8, 9 years old, was scared to death of dentists. And a lot of kids are. They have a lot of anxiety and fear, phobia. I don't like the dentist when they have to do work, real work, right?
Right.
And here's the child already anxious, and the dentist or the hygienist said only one parent can come back, and they both started to come back, and then she said no, only one parent, and they looked at each other, and then it was like this fight started, and mom's like, I'm staying here, they want me here, and then they asked the child, which one of us do
Oh,
you want? And the
no.
child started crying, and the dentist said, you know what, I'm going to stop the appointment, I'm not going to work on a child who's crying,
Yeah,
and made them leave. And I thought, what a nightmare for the kid.
exactly.
So, whether you're a dentist or a pediatrician or whatever your specialty is, I think these are common problems. And Ray's probably asking because Ray has experienced some of this, going,
Yeah.
what are we missing here? So I really do think that information is the key. Sharing information freely with both parents is quite likely going to keep both parents from feeling like they always need to be there at the same time. Don't you
And
think information is really...
I'm thinking, all right, so let's say they do both show up. That maybe here's what I'm thinking. This might work, it might not work. But if you've already got it recorded that they are divorced parents, and you've got that general information that you already know about them, that you create a different protocol when both parents are in the room with you and you're sharing information, and maybe something like, I'm spitballing here, a mediation process where they're divorced, they're maybe high conflict, but you give an opening statement when they come in. I said, all right, listen, this is the protocol that we follow when sharing information with divorced parents. I'm going to have my opening statement, and then each of you get a chance to talk uninterrupted.
Oh, you're asking way too much.
Or
that
I'm going
sounds nice, but I also want my own island in the Caribbean.
And I'm going to separate you if you start to argue.
Well, I don't know that that's practical. Because that's not what they're trained to do. And
true.
Some could do that, but I don't.
It's easier just to tell them you're banned from my office. Don't ever come back.
I think there's some practicalities, like I said, in a dental office where maybe there's just not room. Dentist can't do his or her work with too many people in the room, with the hygienist, and then depending on what kind of work is being done. But I think, I guess I would want to know from Ray, and this would be great to maybe have a medical professional on the show. I would want to know what would keep you from, answering a phone call.
Mm-hmm.
Because that would do so much to endear you to both parents. Hey, just to say to them as a preemptive statement, hey, if either one of you can't be here, I don't want you to stress about it, because I will take a phone call right after the appointment, or I will call you that evening. I don't know about you, Rick, but lately, as we get older, we've had more medical appointments and procedures and things. Right. And I'm kind of astounded the doctors that will call me that night and go, hey, just want to check on you. Ooh. And that really does a lot of good for me. It makes me feel like, oh, I had a colonoscopy recently, and the doctor called me that night. I'm like, ooh, why is he calling me?
Uh-oh, bad news, panic. Yep.
And it was just like, just checking to make sure you're okay. And I'm sure there's some CYA to that.
Sure.
Right. But it also made me feel like, oh, okay, well, they invaded my body, and now they're wanting to make sure that nothing bad happened. I think that would go a long way in calming down some of this medical conflict if the parent who couldn't be there knew that night or that next day, you're going to get a phone call from the doc, say, hey, this is what I told the other parent yesterday. I wanted to see if you had any questions. Does it take more time? Yes. Are you necessarily going to get paid for that? No. Is it smart? Absolutely.
So are we suggesting then that maybe the protocol is that we never see if the box has been checked, there's a parenting plan and there's a divorce, that we're not going to have both parents ever in my office at the same time?
Well, no, because if they're, like I said, low to moderate conflict, they can handle being in the office together.
Okay,
If
strike
that's what
one,
they,
strike two, strike three kind of thing.
well, I don't know. I would find out from the person who brought the child in the first time to say, okay, tell me about your co-parent relationship. Is there issues with it? Here's what I can offer if you think that would be helpful. Or, and the parent may say, oh no, we get along fine. It's great.
Well,
the other
and
parent's going to go, oh my God, thank you. Because yes, he's not going to believe anything that I say happened today unless you tell him directly from your own mouth. And then he's going to say he's not paying for his share of this appointment because he thinks you're a quack. And then he's going to, like, it's
right.
just going to
Well,
balloon from there.
and the office manager could do that. That's not necessarily something the doctor would necessarily have to screen. But
right. But they all already are being trained to screen for depression, suicidal ideation, screen for domestic violence. This is just an
allergies. Right.
I hate to add another screening protocol, but since you asked,
and we have a wish list,
I think it would really be amazing for a doctor to try this and do it, and then report on it and say, yeah, this has really made a big difference, and then start making it something you teach in medical school.
And there may be doctors out there that already have a very successful protocol that they've developed. Right. We'd love to hear about. Yep.
Yeah. They probably aren't listening to our show, but
no,
it never crossed my mind that pediatricians would be that interested until I got this mail.
I mean, right.
Like, oh, isn't that nice? They want to know, for the longest time. In fact, I had a friend of mine, we were trying to put together a textbook for attorneys to learn in law school about personality disorders, because we were so frustrated that it seemed that they got so sucked in to people's personality disorders. But then eventually I realized that's also how they made their money, by getting sucked in. But, sometimes professions are taught certain things because this is how we've always done it. And they don't often keep up with the culture. This was probably not a problem 30, 40 years ago, would you say? It's become more of a problem in the last 20 years since I've been doing this work, that both parents want to be involved as much as they are.
And it probably
I don't know that my dad ever knew I even went to the doctor.
Yeah.
But I think dads now have a different idea about parenting than my parents' generation. So over time, and then you add a divorce to that, and then there's a lot of anxiety about, how do I know for sure that what he or she's telling me is the real truth? And then they call the doctor's office, and then some front person says, well, your name's not on the list for, information. And then they really get angry. And then that's when they file a court action, because I'm being told that he or she's not counting me as a real parent here, and that's not going to happen. And so it just creates more conflict than is necessary if you take a few preemptive steps.
Yeah, I agree. And maybe could say something about documentation for the courts. Should we have any recommendations for how they say it or what they say that going to be used in court?
I think that oftentimes things are said but can't be proved. And, now that they're in court, and let's use the same example with allergies. Mom says, well, the pediatrician told me, and, even listed it in the portal that the child has allergies, but he won't believe it. And then the other side, well, I might believe it, but she's told me the pediatrician said this, and I never read anything like that. So I would say putting notes in the portal that are understandable for the layperson, and not just diagnosing notes, but here's the advice I gave to the parent who brought the child. So that when the other parent reads that, then they can compare that to what the parent told them. And they can point to it and say, well, if you go to the portal, it says use this cream, not that medication.
Yeah.
Right. I had another case like that where they had a baby that had this severe diaper rash, and the pediatrician was saying something, but the mom was saying, no, he said this particular cream that was really expensive. Eventually got the doctor on the phone after months really of this battle. And the doctor was like, no, you can use this. You can use, I don't know, whatever it was something very common and simple. And that's all he needed to know. But he didn't tape that conversation. So it still became an issue in court about what the doctor actually said. So I don't think doctors understand how they get used.
Yes.
They get weaponized.
Weaponized, yes.
And how they could be helpful if they just didn't allow that to happen by just making a few simple notes that both parents could refer to. And then it'd be a done deal. And if you don't like what the doctor said, then, it's your prerogative to ask for a different doctor, depending on who has final say on medical issues and that kind of thing. But at least we know what the doctor said.
Yes.
It's not getting embellished or changed based on what a parent wants to happen. And, there's been more and more talk or incidences maybe of factitious disorder, what used to be called Munchausen's by proxy kind of thing. I think as a doctor, you would want it documented.
Yep.
What you're saying to a parent, because we have encountered maybe parents that don't have that disorder to that level, but we have encountered parents who get something out of their child being ill in a divorce.
Right.
Like, I'm the only one that can take care of my child, therefore I deserve custody kind of thing.
Yes.
And they will doctors say things that they don't say. So I would think a doctor would want it to be clear to the court.
Yep.
No, I did not suggest surgery.
Yep.
Because then that mom or dad will take that child to another doctor until somebody does decide to do surgery. You know what I'm saying? I think there is some responsibility on the medical community to understand that there are dynamics in divorce where somebody who does have a personality disorder could take it.
Yep.
Maybe not as far as factitious disorder, but I think they call it factitious disorder using others is the official DSM name now. It used to be Munchausen's by proxy kind of thing.
Yep.
That's a severe and rare disorder, but that doesn't mean there's not a whole lot of people that are trending in that direction in order to get what they want in court.
Yeah. The doctors already have a lot of which they have to worry about in terms of insurance and legalities. And so to wade into this water with divorce and lawsuits, it probably add one more burden to them.
Yeah.
But in the long run, it's probably for pediatricians, particularly. Ray, thanks so much for bringing this up. And because the one thing we have in common with you and your profession is care for the child. So I think it's worth it in the long run.
Right. And let me suggest as we wrap this up, you have two choices. You either do what we're asking and put something in your documents that you have parents sign that kind of let you know whether they're divorced and what kind of a custody agreement and what you plan to do about that and how you're going to communicate with both parents, blah, blah, blah. And, everybody does this on an iPad anymore. So it's just a matter of putting data on the iPad.
Yep.
Either that, or you better put a clause in your documentation that if they drag you into court, they're going to pay you your hourly rate for it because you end up in court.
There you go.
And if there's nothing in your paperwork that says they take you to court, they'll pay your rate, you're going to end up in court giving up a day of patience and not getting that. Well, the court will pay you like $35 as a witness rate, and then you're going to be upset. So don't let it get to that point. Put some protocols in place that kind of help parents. And if you do that, you are way less likely to be subpoenaed to go to court.
Yep.
Because they won't need you. It'll be clear in the notes of the protocol that can be subpoenaed that say, okay, here's what happened. What's the problem?
Yep.
Don't give the kid peanut butter. Stop it. And then that makes it easier on the judge to make a determination. They won't have to drag you into court and say, did you say this or did you say that? So
yes, very good.
think that was 4 or 5 things on the wish list. I wasn't counting.
I'm sure we could come up with more as we learn more. Yes.
And I want to invite our listeners to email us and add to the wish list.
Yes.
Because I would like to communicate more with Ray.
Yeah.
And say, in addition to what you heard on the podcast, we also had a few others, because those who are listening probably have way more experience than we do with it.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. Well, that was fun.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate someone in a collateral profession saying we need help too, to know what to do. So thank you so much. All right. Talk to y'all next week.
All right. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye. The information contained in this podcast is generic. It must not be misconstrued as constituting legal or psychological advice. Decisions relevant to any specific individual, family system, or case require the direct evaluation of skilled, child-centered professionals.